Stan. How you doing?
Good.
Stan, this is Piero Bogoni. Can you hear me okay?
You're a little faint.
I'm sorry. Go ahead again. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, just pull up your mic just a little bit, get your stuff all set up.
Okay, go right. Just a second. I'm gonna get the mic up on. Did you just call a second ago? Because I heard it ring, but I was away for a bit.
Yeah, I didn't know which number to call. You left a different number.
Okay.
This morning with my wife.
Oh, great. Yeah, and I do apologize for that. I realize you're out in California now.
Yeah, we've got a big time zone difference. I think we're 3 hours different.
Yeah, and I do apologize for that. I was up late working on it. So, well, we're live now. The stream's been up for a while, so we can go ahead and talk now. What I'll do is later today, what I do is, the stream seems like it's lagging up and down. The way I do it is, right now I break the stream up into little segments. You know, I stop streaming and I let YouTube ingest it, and then probably download it, edit it, maybe just save out this part. What we can also do is maybe arrange a call sometime where, I'll go ahead and we'll dedicate a short stream just to the call, so that way we don't have like 2 hours of video behind this. That's basically what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm watching the stream now. I just got the volume turned down on it so I don't get that weird delay.
Okay, cool. Yes, the echo, of course. I appreciate it. So how's the audio coming through? Like, for instance, later when you listen to it, you'll probably find that the audio from my microphone sounds fine, and it sounds to me like the audio coming through the call is sounding pretty good. So we'll just go ahead and talk now. I wanted to ask you a little bit about. Well, first of all, obviously you can see me talking to you right now on YouTube, huh? It's pretty cool, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And as I said, later you're going to find out that this is interactive. And again, you called the number and I picked up. So that's basically the concept. So now if you or anybody in the YouTube community, it's basically what you just did is going to be what it is. They can put a number up on the screen, sit back and wait, and be able to take live stream and be able to take calls during the live stream. And they can also make them too. That's kind of the cool part, is they can make calls.
Oh. Now how does it work if multiple people call in? Do they go into a queue and you can answer them in order? Can you put them on hold and things like that?
Yes, that's the design and that's the intention, just like talk radio. So hence the name TalkVideo. Since I don't have anybody calling right now, and I don't have multiple callers, we're going to find out. But for now, the way it's going to work is, if you have multiple callers, they'll go into a queue. I'll let you set up. I'll let the user configure how many people they want to queue up, because what'll happen is while those people are waiting, I think a popular YouTuber could possibly have many callers call in at once. There's just no reason to have 100 people queued up. It doesn't make any sense, although the software will probably support it. When a caller is queued up and is on hold, I have to charge for that time, because I'm paying for the telephone time. You see, what I'm doing is I'm reselling voice over IP. So if you were having five people queued up, what would happen is that I'd have to charge 10 cents per minute for each one of those people on hold. So I think most people are probably going to want to. One live caller and anybody else calls in may just get a quick recorded message that says, we got somebody on the line right now, please call back in a moment or something. I think that might be the most effective thing for most people.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk a little bit about the BarZ, about the Summer Bash. I came to know about it from, as I mentioned yesterday, I have a sort of a hobby interest or a sideline interest in machining, and that's how I came to know the YouTube Machinist Community. Learned quite a bit from watching those videos. Really glad I did, because they've all served me well. And then it came to know about the BarZ Industrial and a little bit about your Summer Bash. So tell us more about maybe the background about what you do and what you got planned. What you got planned for the machinist community this year.
Well, I'll give you the history of the Summer Bash. BarZ, since we've been in business since the late 90s, we've always put on a summer event. And this was for, some of our favorite customers and different things. And we'd have 80 to anywhere between 80 and to 200 people every summer, and it's our opening of summer, celebrating summer. We're tired of the cold months. We live in California. We don't do well in the cold, so we're celebrating the first day of summer. And about 4 years ago, I got a call from. I'd already made friends with everyone on YouTube, and Brad Jacobs, the Basement Machine Shop, gave me a call, and he said, "Hey, I'm coming out to California," and it just so happened he was going to be in town the same weekend as my regular summer bash. So I said, "Okay, well, why don't you come out for the bash? It's friends and everything." So he said, "Sure, well, let's see if we can get any of the other YouTubers." Okay, that might be fun. So I started making calls, and we ended up with 30 YouTubers that year, and somehow the word got out, and we just got. I had over 500 requests of people that wanted to come and just meet all these other YouTubers, and I can't process that many people here at this property, so we throttled it back to 300, put them on a waiting list, and brought them in. Had a raffle, had some events for them to, for our guests to participate in during the day, and the summer bash just exploded that year.
Cool.
And it's kind of like you got a tiger by the tail, I turn away people every year now.
Wow. Well, that's that's unfortunate, but it's great to have something that's successful. I've noticed on the videos, is that literally your home, or is that the business property, or what's going on there? Because I saw the aerial shot. I think it was Keith Fenner had a drone or something and shot some aerial, and it looks like a nice place, but it looked like it was in a residential property or a neighborhood or something.
Well, it's a horse ranch. It's an old horse ranch. We used to back when we moved in here, we actually it was a working horse ranch. And I've since gotten rid of the horses, and now we have all this extra space. So it's a little over an acre, and like I say, we can process 300 people through here pretty painlessly. There's been talk of moving to a convention center or something like that, but we would lose the lose the intimacy, if you will, So.
Well, sure, because you've got right there at the facility. I mean, you've got some stuff. You've got some machines set up, and it looks like you have a little bit of a garage and things like that. It's a little bit more appropriate, I think. If you take it to a convention center, you're all going to be sitting in a hotel, in a hotel, in a hotel lobby somewhere. That's not the same thing, I don't think.
No, it's not. And you'd have to, if you did do a convention center, you'd have to haul in machinery and all these shop-related things, and it would just be a nightmare trying to get all this stuff in there.
Well, of course, and to that extent, even as somebody who's never been there, I'm certainly grateful that you're extending your property to do that. That's awesome that you're doing that for the community, because it's like you said, if you tried to take it somewhere else, it wouldn't be the same. But at the same time, it is your property there, and you can only have so many people. So that's actually really cool. It doesn't surprise me that it got so popular. Even though even if the YouTube Machinist Community is a small section of the whole YouTube universe, you're still probably going to see thousands of people. So I guess what are you going to do, right? I mean, even if it is a small percentage, you're going to get massive people there.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I've gotten some offers from people to move it to convention centers, even small convention centers, and I could handle the load, the people. Then I could bring in 500, 600, 700 people, however many people register and want to come. Now I'm capable of handling that, but now I've got to set up this huge a fake shop, at a convention center, and try to get events for these people to do, because all of our events and things during the day, all involve a machine. They have to dial in something or do something on a machine, or use use measuring tools and things like that.
Sure.
For these competitions.
Sure. Well, and You know, to that extent, it's, you know, I myself, you know, run a business, and I know that a lot of people, you know, they watch the YouTube videos and they probably think that maybe this is all you do with that, but the reality is everybody has a regular job and a regular business, and the videos are sort of an augment to that. So it really is nice that you can, you know, take that extra step, and I certainly hope it does help your business in terms of marketing and sales and all that. But at the end of the day, I know that entertaining a YouTube meeting is not necessarily your core line of business, and to whatever extent you have to make an extra effort to do that. And you know, I'm sure everyone who's as a viewer, I appreciate it, and I'm certain anyone who's ever been there probably would appreciate it.
Yeah, these guys making these videos, trust me when I say they're not getting rich off of the Google money. You know, it's not that much off of that ad revenue, they do it because there's so much more than just reading a book. If you can present it in a video, work on something, explain it while you're doing it, tell them why you're doing it, and videos are so information rich, and there's so much that can be presented. Even if talk about it, you just see them do something on the screen, and just a technique that they're using, and all you have to do is see it. They don't even have to say anything about it. You look at it and you go, yeah, I got it. That makes things a lot easier.
Yep. And I mentioned that yesterday. I told you that, you know, prior to, it's only been a few months, really, just a few months ago, I didn't know what parting off was, and I learned. I watched videos, Tubal Cain's parting off video, and I watched the video by A-Bomb79 on how to part off, and I took the techniques and tips and tried them, and of course they worked, you know, and they explained it. It made sense, and I like to use that as an example because it's kind of a cool one. And what I found out as I did that, just as an aside, kind of on a machinist type of thing. On one of the pieces I used an insert, and I thought it was found as a little wide. It was about an 1/8 inch wide, at least like an 1/8 inch wide insert. I thought that was a little wide. So I went down to a slimmer high-speed steel. That seemed to work a little better, but I found out that how well it works has a lot to do with your grind, how well you grind it. So I learned that lesson. But just recently somebody has told me that you can buy inserts now that have that grind where you, it's not, the cutting off tip is not, you know, it's cut off at an angle so that you leave the nib on your workpiece and cut off your part clean. That was the part I had learned about, and I thought that was kind of cool. So that's just a technique that I had decided to try because because it works and it looks good and it does the job. And I learned that entirely from watching YouTube.
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And you know, these guys that are making specific videos, you know, there's a lot of times where you're looking to solve a very specific problem. And if these guys are setting up their channels correctly, using the correct keywords and naming their videos correctly, do a quick search, man, you go right to it. And you go, I mean, that was what started me making YouTube videos. I had a very specific problem, and I found Keith Finner. You know, and he was doing the exact same thing I was attempting to do, and I said, that's awesome. You know, I want to do that.
Do you mind sharing? What was it? Well, if you don't mind telling, what were you trying to?
Oh gosh, I don't even remember. It was a boring issue.
Okay.
Not boring like put you to sleep, but boring a hole, and we were trying to. It was an elongated hole. It was kind of egg shaped, and we were trying to center up on it. You know, and you know, how do you center up on something that's not true? And he was taking averages, you know, and interpreting where the old hole was, and he worked out his reasoning and talked about it, and you know, it got me on center, and the part came out good. That's
pretty cool. I see the problem there. You had an existing bore. It was out around. It was elliptical, right? And you had to try to turn it around again. But the problem is finding the original center. It sounds like that was the problem, right? You had a hole that was out around. You needed to find the original center so you could re-round it around that original center. Was that pretty much it?
Exactly, and press in a sleeve when I was done, you know. But where do you determine something that's worn out elliptically or you know, egg-shaped? Where do you even start?
That's a good point.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you along those lines. There was a video I saw, this is back onto machining again real quick. There was a video I saw where Adam Booth was talking about measuring the inside diameter of a bore, and he had talked about how he uses I think a bore gauge. It's the one with the 2 points. Where what you do is you dial it out, you feel the inside of the bore, you pull it out and use a micrometer on it. And he had mentioned there's other ways, like you use a tri-mic or something like that. But what I was wondering is I saw a video of somebody using a tri-mic to measure the inside of a bore. But if you got a mic that's got 3 points on it, you can't measure. 2 points determine a line. So you can use that to map out the inside of a bore, in perpendicular directions and down the length of a bore, right? I mean, you could actually get a fairly accurate map. But if you have something like 3 points, that's not going to be able to. You can't use that to draw a line across the board. Do you see what I'm getting at? Is my?
Yeah. Well, those tri-mics, the ones you're talking about, are direct reading, so they're already calibrated. They're very expensive, and they've got a very specific range. I've got a couple here. I've got one it only goes between like 1.0 and 1.2.
Okay.
So it's not a very big range. So you would have to have a complete assortment of these direct reading units to be able to do a range of bores. Yes, they are accurate. What you would do with those is, your reading points are 120 degrees apart.
Okay.
But you'd go in, take a reading at whatever, and then maybe turn the entire body of the mic or your part, turn it maybe 90 degrees and get a second reading, and make sure you're actually making a round bore. Make sure you're not cutting an oval.
Right.
You could verify that.
Okay, so that's how you would do that. That's how you would do that with that tool. In other words, obviously anything that something that's just 2 points, that gives you a line, and you can always use that as you go. But if you have 3 points, like you said, you rotate it 90 degrees or something, and eventually you take some measurements, and you can kind of get a map that way. Is that the idea?
Right. But those are direct reading, and they're considered easier to use. I love mine, but it's so rare that I get one that the bore is between 1 and 1.2.
Sure.
And I don't have the full set, and the complete set that goes from 3/4 up to 4-inch is almost $8,000.
Wow.
So it's a little pricey. So I pick them up used whenever I can.
Okay. Wow, that's pretty amazing. That's certainly pretty expensive, and that was a bit of information didn't really know. I guess for what it's worth, you learn the technique on YouTube, but then you can't afford the tools. Oh well. But actually, along those lines, what Adam was showing was a technique that definitely used some less expensive tools and allowed you to, take advantage of the fact that 2 points give you a line and you can measure that. So that was pretty interesting. But let me ask you real quick about. You had mentioned targeted videos. I do want to say something about that real quick. That I know that when I look at some of the Google Analytics that I have on another channel, regardless of the length of the video, I find that my watch time is about 3 minutes. Are you? Does that sound like Does that sound like you have the same experience on your side?
No, I'm sitting just above average, and I'm not really sure why. I look at the real time audience retention and things like that, and I watch my analytics pretty carefully. A lot of times I'll intentionally leave a carrot dangling in the beginning of the video and say, stay tuned to the end, and we're going to show our results. And you got kind of a cliffhanger there, and they want to see the results when you're done. You're working your way through a project, and in the middle and then towards the end, you finally show the results. And when I do show the results, it falls off like drops off like anything. But I try to leave that carrot dangling as long as I can.
Okay. And that's okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I think about how I watch videos. I know that now I'm starting to choose based on time. I will tend to look for the shorter ones. I know that I as much as possible, I do want to help out the person whose channel I'm viewing. But I also, have my own life I need to lead. So a lot of times what I will do is I will skip through the video and scroll through to get to the points I want. But that doesn't mean I won't watch the video all the way through. It may happen that I'll watch it 10 times like that, and I'll see the whole video I'll see it in pieces, but by the time I've done, I will have watched the whole video. And I don't know how well, Google necessarily tracks that, but I found that on this one channel where I had a few different videos that I'd put up, and mostly ones that I had downloaded from others. These were basically like public domain type videos you could put up. I found 3 minutes was the time, and I remember thinking about how, I think it was Pete Townsend from The Who years ago said that, like every rock song was 2 minutes, 50 seconds. So I remember I was thinking that maybe that had to do with people's attention span, that basically you're looking at about a 3-minute attention span for people in general. So I was starting to think that maybe what I should be doing in terms of instructionals is, if I do instructionals, I was thinking about breaking my videos up into 3-minute segments and just making it part 1, part 2, part 3. And that's just an idea, but I'm of the impression right now that people maybe are looking for short things on YouTube.
Possibly. Most of my videos are between 20 and 40 minutes long. I don't like them when they get long, and I consider doing 1, 2, 3 parts. But the stuff's already shot. I've already captured all the content. It's already there on my PC. I'm ready to edit it. I just throw it all in together, and I'd probably get more ad revenue if I split it up like that, because everyone's got an opportunity for them to view a commercial. So,
yep, that's true. That's true. That is something to think about. If you have 40 minutes worth of video and break it up into 10 4-minute video, now you've got 10 videos instead of 1. That's an interesting point.
Yeah, a lot of people that I think my audience retention is probably from people that are coming there that aren't just viewing recreationally. They're not just viewing it just to view it. They want to learn how to do it. They want to, what I'm teaching them to do or what I'm doing, they want to watch it start to finish, and they want to learn how to do that. Or maybe they're doing it themselves and they don't know how to do it, and they're doing it because they want to find out, their next step. They're going to watch that video. They're going to shut down their computer. And they're headed out to the shop to do it.
Well, I've certainly done that plenty of times myself.
Yeah.
Well, and that's great. That's great if you're doing that. Like I said, I only have some metrics from a different channel where it was they weren't really my videos. They were just videos I was monitoring, and they weren't necessarily teaching anything. They were just stuff other people had recorded. So, but that's some interesting numbers, and that's actually good to know. It's good to know that somebody looking to learn something will watch it. Will watch it all the way through. I know I've done it myself, and then I also know that in certain cases I've moved back and forth to find the salient points. But now let's talk a little bit about monetization here, because the idea of the TalkVideo Network is certainly to help people make some money on YouTube. And this thing is brand new. I mean, literally, Stan, you would probably be the first YouTuber I think I've ever talked to on this network. So you get to be part of the inaugural TalkVideo Network, and you're the first caller. You really are. You're the first person to call that number and the first person I ever answered. So welcome to it.
Okay, very good.
Okay, so now of course the idea is that people can take. So with all that, of course, all the details of this, I'm not even sure myself how this is necessarily going to play out. I do have some experience in my career as an IT professional, so I do know how to set up what are called VoIP systems, voice over IP systems. I've set up telephone systems for small businesses. So what I'm doing for this TalkVideo Network is not too different from the types of things I've set up, done for small businesses already. Set up a phone system for them. If a person is taking live calls during a stream, I don't know if there's a way necessarily to monetize that to where we can give people some shared revenue from the call, just the fact that they're calling. When a person's on hold, you can always play music on hold and things like that. So for example, when a person's on hold, they can be listening to the video. Or when a person's on hold, maybe they could be listening to some ad streams for what I call ad pooling. The idea of people want to advertise on the TalkVideo Network, and and those ads are always playing somewhere.
Well, the only thing you're going to need to do is if there's going to be 2 devices that they're using. First of all, they're not even going to know to call unless they're watching the video. Okay, so they're watching this video, and this phone number is flashing across the screen, and they're getting audio out of that feed right there because something's going on, or there's a VJ there talking, or he's interviewing someone live on video. And now when they call in, now they've got two sound sources, and during their hold time, you need to have some kind of pre-recorded message. Hey, you need to turn the video, the audio on your computer down so you don't get a bunch of feedback, you don't hear the delay. People, I mean, if you ever call into a radio station and the people are playing the radio in the background and they're hearing their own voice on a 20-second delay, it really screws them up. They literally just lose their minds and they can't talk.
Oh yes, I know. I mean, every talk radio station, the two things you hear on talk radio: long-time listener, first-time caller, and turn your radio down in the background. That's every talk radio station. You always hear those. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah, when they're on hold, you just need to remind them of that. So you could have a pre-recorded thing to tell them to do that, and then thank them for the call and things like that. So that would be all part of their hold cycle. I'm sure you're going to loop it or something. But yeah.
Yeah, so those are some opportunities maybe to get some ad revenues. I would like to see what I have in mind, and I'm not sure how crazy Google is going to be about this, but I would like to see content creators be able to solicit their own ad revenue. And I don't know how the TalkVideo Network can necessarily help that, but I'll certainly do it every way I can. The idea being that if you're a content creator, you will be able to get ads from your own sponsors and play them during the stream, or even play them during the call. Not really sure how we're going to go about that yet. One feature, however, that the TalkVideo Network does have, and that I will be looking to push, is that now, because see, lots of people are doing live streaming. That's not new. But if you may have noticed that a lot of people doing live streaming on YouTube, they're looking down at the chat. They're looking down at the chat screen, or they have somebody in a different room answering the questions for them. But almost nobody has integrated call audio into their live stream. Only a guy like Alex Jones has that, because he's got a whole studio. And what he does is he's got somebody with a mixing console who can patch the cords back and forth and eventually get it in the right place. But for an average person with a laptop, and by the way, my setup is a single laptop and a single webcam. I'm using one of these Logitech webcams. And I have a little mixing console, but it's not necessary. It's just an extra there for some extra audio channels that I use. By being able to do this, like I said, they'll be able to take calls live. What that will do, what will happen is that talk radio stations will be able to pick up on those feeds. So if a YouTuber, if a live streamer is able to format their show in a usual talk radio format, which is basically 15-minute segments with a few minutes in between, they may be able to sell those shows, or if they're really popular, local talk radio markets may be able to pick up those streams, and then people who are in those local talk radio markets can also call in, even though they might be in their car or wherever.
Yeah, that sounds fun. I mean, the only thing we're doing different for the live stream, and during the bash, I'm running around doing other stuff. I've got another guy that does the live stream for me, by the name of Tom Zalickman, and what he's come up with this year is he actually takes chat and he'll insert it right on the screen in real time. So anyone typing anything in, as you know, live chat during a live stream, after that video is done, processed, and posted, you lose all the live chat.
Right.
But he's found a way to go ahead and he inserts the live chat into the video, so it's actually not lost.
Good.
And it pops up there in real time, so anyone viewing it after the fact can see who commented what during the feed, but you're not able to talk to them. This is much more personable.
It is pretty cool, isn't it? And I have to say, time for a little plug. I did it, didn't I? I did it. Has anybody else done this? I did it. Stan, I did it, man. I pulled it off. I pulled it off, man. So, and I know what I did. I know what I did. I'm not unknowledgeable about what I do for a living and its impact. And look, if this were not necessary, I wouldn't have created it. It came to me just by watching people doing live streams and such, and saying, well, wait a second, how come I can't call this guy? Why can't? Why? You know, I think I asked myself the question: how come we don't have talk video? What have we got? Talk radio? Why not talk video? Well, as soon as I did that, as soon as I asked that question, I got onto the USPTO website and I registered the trademark talk video. That's what I did. So, yeah, I think it is the way to go. What you mentioned about, did you say Tom? What you mentioned that Tom had done about getting the chat? That's a cool trick. I'm going to look into that. I don't know if there's a plugin for that. I'm a programmer, so I know how to use YouTube's what's called their API. They have some APIs that you can interact with YouTube with programs. But I'm not sure if that's one of them. But getting the chat in a video is a great thing. That's very cool. And that's sort of what led to this as well, is because I noticed that as I was exploring this and then looking at other people's live streams, I said, this chat gets lost. So yeah, the chat gets lost. So a lot of times the context of the video is lost, or what happens is the person on the screen has to try to read those chats and say, oh, so-and-so said this and so-and-so said that, and then reiterate. And it's really not the same. I don't think it's the same at all.
Well, I've done live casts with Tom before. I'm on the West Coast. He's on the East Coast, and he's on a Macintosh, by the way. And I'm not sure which software he's using, but he emails me a link, and he actually emailed out links to several of the other YouTubers, and we're all sitting down in front of our PCs or our laptops or something, and we go live with him, and he'll do picture-in-picture, and we'll talk to each other back and forth right there on the video. Okay. And I've done some live feeds with him before, and they're fun. Okay. And it's very interactive, and we both are able to view chat, you know, and you know, they'll type a question, and either he'll answer it or I'll answer it or whatever. But he's a pretty smart guy. I mean, he's figured out a lot of stuff for the live stream.
Well, they have, you know, they do have software for that. They have things like Start Meeting, and they have something like Cisco has WebEx, I believe. So they do have, you know, the business. For business, you know, for the business community out there, IT providers have come up with a lot of tools for doing screen shares, and Google Hangouts is another one. So they definitely have stuff like that for the business community. How well it's integrated with YouTube live streams, I guess, has a lot to do with how good how creative the technology person is. But let me just say, without a doubt, you know, if you'd like to take live calls, if you'd like to use this technology at your BarZ Bash this summer, unquestionably, free of charge, I'll come out there, I'll set it all up for you, or I'll work with your guy to set it up, no problem. But yeah, I mean, you know, I'd love to see it happen. And if you want to take live calls during the stream, during your Bash this summer, absolutely, I'll make it happen for you.
Okay, is your software or whatever you're installing for this, is that Mac friendly, or?
Yes, yes. As a matter of fact, it is actually. In fact, I'll tout the software right now. I wish I had some logo images to put up the screen, but I'm definitely going to do that. Have some logo images to go up on the screen, because part of my streams are going to say we use, and then we're going to list out the software I use. So right now, I'm going to list out the software we use.
Okay. I'll get you hooked up with Tom Zelickman. I'll get you his email address, and I'll give him a heads up that you're going to be contacting him. Okay. And he's another one that's in the machinist community. He's kind of a CNC guy, you know. So there's the manual guys out there, and then there's the CNC guys that are using all the and they're using various software to create their tool paths and things like that. So these guys are geniuses, you know.
Well, where's he? If he's on the East Coast, whereabouts? What state?
One of the I think it's South Carolina.
Okay, good. So that's not. I'm South too. Okay, so you know, and I do want to say I was doing some thinking about CNC versus manual, and I told you the machine I have is a Shopmaster, and it does both, and it's kind of cool. It's nice to. I can't live without the manual mode. You know, just because it's CNC, I mean, that's nice to have. It's great, but on my particular machine, I couldn't live without the manual mode. It's why, you know. It's just the way it is. But, you know, I was thinking a little bit about that, and that does factor into programming. Like, for example, when you're a programmer, if you're doing something over and over, you tend to you program it. You tend to automate it. If it's a one-off, you may not do as much automation. And I think the same sort of thing applies, right? I mean, in machining, a guy like Adam Booth, you see the pieces he's working on, he may get, it's a one-off. He'll get one huge piece of metal he has to make work, and it's a shaft for, some kind of pump or some kind of, hydraulic ram or something like that, and the thing's huge. But, there's no real point to, in programming, we call it programming overhead. In IT, it's programming overhead. So there's always programming overhead. And the idea is, do you recoup your programming time overhead down the road, with volume production? And obviously, if you're producing many, many parts, of course you are. But I think you could see that in a case like, Adam Booth, when he has these specialty jobs that come in. What would be the point? What would be the real purpose? What would be the real point of programming anything when you got one piece and you're doing certain specific things to it?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing about the difference between a job shop and a production shop. I'm not a big production fan myself. I'm a job shop. I do prototyping, research and development for the local laboratories.
That's right.
Right out of my shop. And if sometimes I have 30 pieces I got to make. To me, that's production. That's huge. If I got to make 30 parts, holy moly, as compared to somebody brings in one thing that's broken or one thing that I've got a cocktail napkin drawing from an engineer, and I have to try to build whatever he's envisioned. And I'll do that all day long. But as soon as they say, okay, this prototype's great, can you make 600 of them? I tell them go somewhere else.
That's right. And and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that from a business perspective or from a individual perspective. That strikes me as very much the beauty of all that. In that there's always going to be the need for the engineers and the tinkerers and the job shoppers, the person who does need to make that first part and who does maybe need to go through the arduousness of creating that first part. But it's like anything else in the world. Once it's been reduced to practice, once it's been reduced to practice, your job as a job shopper might be done, but that doesn't mean that the work is done. They'll take it to a factory next. But the role of a job shopper is still indispensable in a situation like that.
Well, ideally, I mean, you're both. You've got a job shop and a production shop. You can do their prototyping and you can do their production runs. But, I mean, all my customers know that I'm going to help them develop their product. I'm going to make practical recommendations for any changes. They'll say, hey, I want to use this type of thread, or I want this size hole, or I want to use this kind of O-ring, and I'm going to kind of steer them in the right direction because mechanically I know what works and what doesn't. Say, no, that O-ring's going to fail early. That's the wrong thread. You're doing too many thread cycles. You're going to wear out that thread. You need to change it, or whatever. I help steer them in the right direction to get their product developed. But my customers are so cool, but they know that after I'm done and they've got a working product that they're happy with, they know I'm not the guy to go to with a prototype, but they've got a working prototype that they can take, to a job or to a production shop and get it built for them, and they keep coming back. So that's cool. That is good. That is very cool. And let's face it. You're right. Maybe ideally it would be ideal to do both, but there's always going to be different ranges of volume, right? And there's going to be people who maybe only need in the 1s to 10 and 10 to 100, and then there's customers out there who are going to need an infinite supply, right? I mean, who can really say what level? I don't particularly know what kinds of production numbers that actually that raises a good point. So let's take a guy like John Saunders real quick, who's doing his thing out there. Is there a number of parts, like that might be a question for John, is there some number that represents your most requested number of part runs? That's kind of interesting. That would be kind of an interesting question. Do you see what I'm getting at? I mean, how many is he making? When it's time to produce, what would be his average number? Well, he's got his setup time and his breakdown time and his cleanup time and all that needs to get factored in, and that time needs to get spent whether he's making 100 or 600. It doesn't matter. So, and then there's, I don't know whether, if it's a part that he has to design or, if these are ready jobs. These are someone's already designed it, someone's already created the tool paths, and they just hand him a flash drive with the part already on it, and here you go, it's ready to build.
Right.
So that's all time that needs to get billed for if he has to do that himself.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder how many, like I said, I just wonder for a shop like his, for his customer base, what the typical request size is, or if it's all over the map, or if he can say, yeah, for whatever reason, my customers, the most common number of parts they order is 100, just for whatever reason, it's a round number. But, in any case, I did want to mention, we talked a little bit yesterday and today briefly about learning from the videos. One of the other places I would say that were very informative to me was videos that were not, they weren't about machining techniques specifically, but they were videos that were published by people like Haas. Haas is more about machining, Mark Terryberry and his tip of the day, but some videos put out by Kennametal, Iskar, and Sandvik. And these were just had to do with their tool bits and what they do and cutting data and things like that. And even though it wasn't necessarily a specific machining technique, they explained very well sort of how to determine what kind of engagement you wanted to use, what kind of loading you were doing, what kind of tools to pick for a particular metal. So even outside of a specific machinist technique, just these informational videos from vendors were, just phenomenal in terms of helping you understand, what it's all about.
Yeah, I've seen those before. Seco Niagara puts those out too.
Mm-hmm.
Niagara Tool, they put out quite a few videos of new products. They've got a new end mill that I love called the Stabilizer,
mm-hmm.
And that's for smaller machines, less than rigid machines, and it reduces chatter.
Really?
You can take heavier cuts, and I went ahead and bought a few of them to try them after I saw that video, and they do work well.
That's a good tip. I'll check that out because I have one of these Shopmaster mill turns, and that's the heaviest of my machines, and I would describe that as a less than rigid machine. So that being said, but it's not bad. It's good enough. But yeah, I would describe that as a less than rigid machine. Although I will say there has been a little bit of bad press on Shopmaster, and you know what? I'll tell you, it's mixed. But I will tell you that the results that I've been able to get with it are just fine. I couldn't use it for production because I could never crank out the number of parts necessary. But I can split a thousandth in any dimension, and I can keep something like a circle or a slot within 5/10 all the way. So let's say try to imagine like a circle raised up over a flat surface, a cylinder sticking up. That cylinder is going to be perfectly round within 5/10, and a slot, if I cut it, is going to be a good distance. It's going to be the correct width along its whole length. And actually, I'll give you an example of a test I did with it. I took a piece of 1-inch aluminum. I took a piece of aluminum stock and I drilled 6 holes in it in length. It was about a 1-inch bar, and cut it in half and fold it in half and use dowel pins between it. And I was able to dial in the fit with both the software. With the software, I was able to dial in the fit to what I think was within a fraction of a thousandth. Because you could measure the dowel pins; they were a little bit over. But the point is, 6 holes, all in a straight line, and all with the right fit. When you cut the piece in half and fold it over, you have 3 holes on each side. If those holes are not really lined up correctly, that piece is not going to fit together. You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
And I was able to get a good slip fit, and everything lined up. So, as I said, I know I'd get within a half a thousandth, but yeah, it's less than rigid, and there was I wasn't sure if the chatter I was getting was because I don't know what I'm doing with speeds and feeds, or if this particular situation there's no getting around it. But real quick, you said it was Seco Niagara, and you said it was called the Stabilizer.
It's from Niagara Tool. It's a carbide end mill, and it's called a Stabilizer 2.0.
Okay.
And it's a 4-flute end mill, and they have it's a varying helix,
okay.
Which I thought was interesting. And what it does is it cancels out any harmonics because they're not. When all 4 flutes are at dead equal, it'll create a pattern of harmonics.
Okay.
And if you can break that cycle and break the harmonics, your chatter goes away. Which there's a gentleman that works over there. I've talked to him several times. He's one of their lead tool designers. His name's Dennis Nolan, and he was explaining to me how that unequal helix. I mean, you can't even see it with your naked eye. You'd have to be able to measure the helix of the end mill to get to see the difference in the helix patterns.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because I did actually see a picture of that last time I went to my local tool store where I buy my end mills. They actually had a picture of that called and it might have been, I think it might have been Niagara. I'll look, but they mentioned, I saw up on the wall there was a poster that said variable helix end mills. You know, and it was touting that it mentioned, got rid of chatter and things. So I thought of that, and I thought how interesting that was, and so it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I saw that just the other day, and yeah, that's exactly correct. What happens, and this is not just machining. It's anytime you have it's resonance, and anytime you have something like equally divided, like 4 or even 3, it'll add up to 6 and 12 and such. You know, something that something like a flute on a cutting tool hitting a piece of metal, if they're equally spaced, then it's going to be set up sort of like a drum beat, you know, like boom, 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 and it's going to keep adding up. So one solution to that I saw, I think Haas has what they do is they vary their spindle speed. They have a spindle speed variation technique they can use, which supposedly helps. And I saw that idea of varying the helix on the end mill also is definitely going to help, because what's going to happen is you're breaking up the resonant patterns. Here's another possibility I've thought about, and it's something that I tend to use. It's something I use in my programming when I write programs. So you won't see it necessarily in real life, but I think if I remember, in machining there's something called coprimes, and the idea is like gears that mesh, and their ratios are the number of teeth on both gears is a prime number in each case. Or something like that. Whereas you have a system where something has to interact with each other, and both sides of that, both pieces of that system are based on prime numbers. And the idea being that they're only divisible between themselves in 1, and because of that, they can never interact with each other in an even way, and they'll never build up resonance. Do you see what I'm getting at?
Well, yeah, that's actually pretty simple to fix. If you run an odd-numbered gear with an even-numbered gear, that's considered hunting. And if you run an even-numbered gear with an even-numbered gear, that's considered a pattern.
Okay.
If it's a hunting gear, the same tooth never contacts the same tooth.
Right.
In one cycle. It might contact the same tooth every 8th cycle or 10th cycle or 12th cycle.
Right.
And that's how a lot of if we're talking about high-speed gear trains here, low speed, not an issue at all.
Okay.
But yeah, that is a phenomenon.
Yeah. So and again, the idea being that you want to try to break up any kind of things that add up mathematically, and I think it may be the same idea. You did mention something about boring, and that made me think of how I'd seen these long-reach boring tools that have incredible length over diameter, specifications, because they're dynamically getting rid of the harmonics inside. There's a weight or whatnot inside that bounces back and forth and reduces the dynamics, for a boring bar. So that's another, innovation that I thought was pretty. That was something else that I thought was pretty amazing. So a tool that, to do that, to solve that problem.
Right. If you can afford it, solid carbide boring bars. Gosh, they're so rigid.
So you mean but you mean like, if you're talking a long reach boring bar, you're talking about a piece of carbide, let's say that might be 4 inches across or something like that?
They're pretty stout, and you pay for them. And I'm talking inserted. You get these, tool steel tapered things, and they're supposed to reduce harmonics. I've wrapped rubber bands around my work. I've put rubber bungee cords around my work to stop the howl.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta dampen that resonation any way you can. But till I used my first solid carbide boring bar, I didn't know what rigid was.
Wow.
They're just amazing.
Well, how was it? What was the diameter on that? Real quick, what were the dimensions on that?
About an 8-inch round.
8-inch across, 8-inch diameter. How long was it?
The part?
No, the boring.
We're talking the part or the bar?
The bar.
Oh, the bar was just 1 inch.
1 inch across. But that's still pretty. That's still a pretty solid piece of carbide. A 1 inch thick piece of carbide by what?
Yeah, it was a good 12 inches long.
Wow.
too. So it was a big chunk of carbide.
That was a 12-to-1 ratio. That's pretty good. That's yeah. I mean, carbide being a ceramic, I suspect it's more likely to just break than flex. So I think that's the way it works, right? It's just gonna, if it's going to do anything, it's going to snap. Otherwise, it's going to hold its shape. That's
Yeah, you're gonna break it before you can't bend it.
yeah. That's pretty. But hey, that's something. That's a lot to be said for that. That's pretty amazing. That's that's and that's something. And those kinds of things, just like you just mentioned there, that's exactly the kind of thing, to make videos out of. Little pieces of information like that. So, well, we Stan, obviously I could sit here and talk all day, and I do have a couple of ideas that I think maybe I will reveal at some point to the machinist community and things I thought about. You made me think of one recently about, we were just talking about getting rid of vibrations. Just real quick, one of the things you can do with computer programming is you can do acoustic noise, or what's it called, dynamic noise cancellation, like headphones. And I've often wondered if that can be applied to machines where you would have a sensor listening to the machine, and another one, and then feeding it back to a computer that inverted the sound, and another transducer or a speaker that fed the inverse vibrations right back into the machine. And you actually used acoustic noise cancellation to help get rid of some of your chatter. I don't know if that's possible or not, but a computer can actually do that. Take the vibrations, analyze them, and then generate an inverse wave in real time.
Yeah, very possible. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff used to cut the chatter. You get a big piece of cast iron, which is chattery anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Cut up inner tubes. Like I said, bungee cords, rubber bands. I've had rubber bands wrapped around my boring bars, inner tubes wrapped around my parts, just trying to cut the chatter any way I can. When you get those big bores and you've got maybe a pretty deep hole and you got that boring bar hanging way out there, you just have to sturdy that thing up any way you can.
Doesn't surprise me, and I guess it goes without saying that if those are some critical dimensions, and if you're trying to bore some kind of sleeve that a rotating shaft has to be in, you just don't have any tolerance. So you basically along the length, I'm guessing that along the length of anything like that, you've probably got a 1/2,000 you can work with in any dimension. I mean, does that sound about right?
Yeah, you can nail half of that pretty easy.
But I mean, is it, in terms of if you go over that, what I'm getting is what would be your tolerance? More.
It depends on what depends on what the part is and what the customer's called out for a tolerance, but. We always try to sneak up on it any way we can. There's action and reaction. Just because you dialed in, 1,000th on the dial or on the DRO, what are you actually getting? Are you getting 8/10? You dialed in 1,000th, but what did your cut? What size cut did you actually make? Did your boring bar deflect 2/10 while you were making that cut? It's all action and reaction.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, in other words, no matter what, whether you did it with program or not, at the end of the day, you still have to measure it, and if you didn't, if it didn't come out to spec, obviously you got to finish it up. But no, I mean, I guess that makes sense. You have to make sure, make sure it meets the tolerances.
Well, I mean, if you're talking specifically lathe work, let's say you're coming up on a size, you got a long ways to go, and you're plowing out, maybe 20 thousandths at a time, and with a 20 thousandths depth of cut, your boring bar or your tool is maybe deflecting 1,000th.
Okay.
So you're going 20, 40, 60, 80, and you're plowing off all this material, and you go, okay, I'm missing my target by 1,000th, and now my last finish cut, I'm only going to take 4 thousandths off. Now you need to take into account that your boring bar or your tool is not going to deflect as much with that light of a cut. And a lot of guys make mistakes trying to sneak up on it. If you're undersized by 20 thousandths, do it in 2/20s. Don't do it in a 20 and 2/10s. Because anytime you increase the depth of cut, you're going to increase your tool deflection too.
Okay. And I can say I've come across what you just described. I know I've come across as I started playing around with the lathe I've got. I started to notice, in other words, I would turn a part down and then measure it along its length to try to figure out, how long can I leave sticking out of the chuck before I have to put a center in. Depending on how deep the cuts I take, how bad's the taper going to be, and can I finish this thing up, go with a finishing pass and bring it within a spec in one pass, and different things like that. So I was learning all that stuff you just mentioned kind of in my own experience. And I was even thinking about looking at the possibility, and I probably will do this with CNC. I was thinking that if I have a piece on a lathe, let's say, and there's no getting around the fact that there's going to be a slight taper to it along its length, I'm pretty sure that with my CNC machine, with a CNC, what I can do is I can compensate for that taper in the software. In other words, in the software, use the inverse. Make the part taper.
A lot of guys do, yeah. They'll just program out the taper.
Yeah, and I see no reason it wouldn't work. And I'm actually kind of looking to explore that a little bit more because what that implies is that, if you have a certain amount of accuracy like that, if you can get down to that accuracy, it means that even with some of these less expensive machines like I have, if you're patient, it means that you might be able to make very accurate parts. Again, maybe production is not going to happen, but if you're in a situation like I am where the things you need to make, maybe you're only making one, but it has to work. You know what I mean? It can't be wrong. It has to work. It's nice to know that with these machines available to the home, and small business machinists, that yeah, you can get a part down to I know that I can get a part down to a half a tenth, and I know I can get it with a little bit of patience, turned off a lathe. I can get a part within about 2/10 without too much effort. Like I said, that's not going to be a fast production thing, but if I need a part within 2/10, I know I can do it.
Well, after you've got one and got it all figured out, it doesn't matter whether you make 1 or 100. After you've got it dialed in, you're good to go. You can spit out as many of those parts of the correct dimension as you want.
Well, that's true. That's true. And it's true with CNC if you can get that. As I said, that's the, and in the end, that's the cool thing about what's happening with the home CNC and the small shop CNC and what YouTube is doing to bring that to people. And let there be no mistake about it. I have, anybody can buy these machines now, but if you don't know what to do with it, you're pretty much out of luck. So I was certainly turning to YouTube to help take this heavy piece of iron I've got in my shop and turn it into something useful. It's been really, really valuable to that extent. So Stan, is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything to say? Maybe give a pitch or anything you want to say about life in general?
No, not that I can think of. It's been a pleasure talking to you. If any of if this makes it on the air, you're more than welcome to register for the Summer Bash. I'll give the email address for the Summer Bash, if that's okay.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Okay, it's Summer Bash at barzindustrial.com. Send me your guest names, and I will get you all the information you need. I'll get you an information package for the event, and we'll get you started on your registration.
Okay.
We have about 150 spots left.
Okay.
We just opened registration, so
well,
anyone that watches YouTube's welcome. If they're interested in the machining community, they're more than welcome to visit BarZ.
Okay, and you know what? Along those lines, I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to register for a spot because I want to leave that spot open for somebody else. But we'll make the offer to you that if you want to take live streams I'm on the East Coast. If you want to make live streams during the bash, I will make it a trip at my expense to come on out there and help you do it, or I'll talk to your tech guy, Tom, and get him squared away with how to do this. So if I do show up, I would love to do it and love to show up, sort of as a journalist or as a media or to help you get it on YouTube. But in terms of registering a spot, no, let me leave that open for someone else so that I won't take up somebody else's spot. And then between now and the bash, certainly I want to do everything I can to help you take live streams and live calls if you can. And if you're interested in doing that, I'll do everything it takes to make sure you can, including coming out there and setting it up for you the day of the event.
Okay, very good. I sure appreciate that. If you don't want to make the trip, that's okay. I know you and Tom are over there on the East Coast. If you can get together with him and just get his comfort level up with the software, where he says, "Yeah, I got it. I can run it."
Okay.
Then you wouldn't need to make the trip unless you want to.
Okay.
So, obviously.
Well, I sure would want to, but we all know that life is like that, right? I mean, after all, I still have bills to pay too. So, And this being a new channel and a new project, boy, I'm going to have some bills to pay, let me tell you. But that be
Well, yeah, I hear that.
Yeah.
I remember my first year in business.
Yeah. So, but yeah, very much. If nothing else, I'll be there in spirit, and I'll be sure to, when it does come, be doing what I can to promoting it on my channel. Okay, I will do that, and I'll get in touch with you by email and phone and such. I have by email and through your website. And certainly, you've got my, you should have my cell phone number, so you can call me anytime you want. And go ahead.
Is that other number you left this morning?
Yes.
Got it. All right, I'm not going to say that on the air.
Appreciate it. And I want to point out that's the other benefit of this whole talk video thing. And perhaps that's the main benefit, is that I provide the phone number for somebody. Otherwise, you could do this without the software, without my system. You could, with a mixing console and some patch cords, take live calls during your live stream. Anybody could do it, but you'd be giving out your actual phone number on the air. And we know nobody wants to do that. You have everybody on the planet calling you. So that's the advantage that I provide, is I can get you a toll-free number you can give out on the air, and it'll get routed to your phone.
Got it. Okay, what are you doing with this video? Are you going to let it post, or are you just letting it die? Or
No, I'm going to let it post. What I'm going to do is, after we hang up the call, I'm going to do a quick wrap-up on the video, and then I'm going to stop the stream so that YouTube can ingest it. And once YouTube ingests it, see, I don't have DVR set up on these videos, and that's just because DVR means you can scroll back several hours. So people who are watching this video only get like the last minute or so. If you tuned in right now, you'd only see the last minute of our conversation. And that's kind of how I want it. I don't think I really want DVR on these just yet. So what happens is I wait till I have to turn off the stream, and then YouTube ingests it and then puts it up on my page. At that point, what I'll probably do is re-download it, edit out the part with us having the conversation, and put up a video that says, Talk Video speaks to Tom from the BarZ Industrial. Something along those lines. So that way, it'll be shorter, it'll be just part of our call, and because I think the stream was running for several hours. This stream was running for 3 hours before you called, or about 2.5 hours.
Oh.
Yeah, so, and it's, I think it's just 2.5 hours of a test pattern. So I'll take the first part off and just keep out the, keep out this part of the call and save it as a separate video that says something like, TalkVideo Network talks to Stan from BarZ Industrial.
Do you want any of my Summer Bash artwork or anything to put up on the screen? I can email it.
I can
email it to you.
I may very well. Please do. Please do. I may very well.
Okay. Yeah, I've got a couple little generic things you can throw up on the screen, not full screen, just kind of to the side or whatever.
Okay. All righty. I'll certainly do that.
I don't think I have any good pictures of myself because, during a video like this, they see your face, but they don't see mine, and some people wonder, who's this guy? What does he look like?
Okay, understood. That's the part of that's the part of talk video maybe we haven't quite gotten worked out yet. But you raise a good point. We might figure out something for that where a caller would be able to post an image of themselves. I think callers will go to my website. Here's why. Normally when you call talk radio, there's a guy manning the console and asks you your name, so that when the host wants to bring you up, he says, okay, we're going to talk to Tom from Decatur, Illinois. Well, if you're just one man running your live stream, you're not going to have that available. So I think what I would have is something like, when people are calling in, they can go to a website and there'll be a screen to them. Like when they're calling in, they'll get an ID number, something like your call is number 1000. And in the screen, they would type in the ID of your call. And then that would give them a little portal that they could then enter some information. So for example, maybe if they had a webcam on their computer, that website would be able to capture an image of them. Maybe they would be able to type in their name. So the point is, that would show up on a heads-up display for the host, and then they would have some meta information about the caller. But at the current time, that's about the only way I can think of to do it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. Well, I'm just saying it'd be fun to see a face or something that I consider Tom like a VJ, like a video disc jockey during the bash. That guy mans that computer for 8 hours straight. I got an 8-hour stream going, and it's nonstop all day long.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And Well, like I said, that's part of this we have yet to work out is how, when somebody, like for instance, when you called me, how do I get your picture up on the screen to say this is Tom from BarZ? I would have to have, at the current time, I would have to have a picture in advance. For example, this software allows, I use something called OBS. So for example, it allows you to put up an image. Like right there, I just put up an image that I had put up earlier. There also allows you to have capture windows. So for example, now I have a Firefox window I just brought up. So if I went to that Firefox window and looked up BarZ Industrial, you'll see this in real time as I'm doing it on.
There's a little delay, but I see you at the search window now.
Okay. Yeah, this is about a 30-second to about a minute delay. So you'll see that what'll happen is that you can bring up images and things like that. So if I did have an image of you in advance, or somebody were able to post one, I would be able to show that. So there are some possibilities there. The cool thing is though that I use something called open source software. Okay, I don't use Microsoft anything. I use open source. So if I don't have access to the source code, I won't use it. But because I have access to the source code, I can make this program do whatever I want. OBS is a great suite of software, and there might be a plugin for this community. So there's a whole bunch of different possibilities. But yes, I very much look forward to whatever art you can send me. I'll try to get it into the video somehow. I am definitely going to edit this down to just the conversation. And by all means, if you have a chance to speak to anybody else in the community, have them call me. If they want to call me and talk, by all means. If they'd like to have me call them to talk, do a video, do a quick. For example, if I call anybody in the community that you know of, if they would like to do this, I can call them and we can just do a brief interview, and then they can have the video and put it up on their channel. I'd be perfectly happy to do some of this for people to have videos that they can then put up on their channel, because that ultimately helps my channel. So it would be something like so-and-so speaks to talk video. So, by all means, feel free to put the word out, and I'll gladly help anybody, who wants to, take part in the call.
I sure will. Well, I've got a few guys that do live streams that would probably be interested. Some of the guys are just doing regular videos, editable, where they can get them down to bare bones. You never know what's going to happen in a live feed. It's because we just hang it all out there, mistakes, everything.
Sure.
Yep.
Well, it is fun. I thought about that. I've done a lot of practicing. I did a fair amount of rehearsing before this to make sure I get it looking reasonably professional. I don't know if you looked at my channel. I had a couple of setups there where I actually I did a live stream of my Shopmaster doing some cutting. Again, same software, and what's cool about it was I have a camera set up on my DRO and then another window for the Mach 3 in the same video. So you can see the machine cutting, and then you see the DRO, and you can see the Mach 3 console in the same video, and it's real time. So it's kind of cool in that regard, because you can generate an instructional video like that where you're showing the part cutting, and then you can see what's happening on the DRO, and you can see what your controller software is doing.
I'll go check it out here in a little while. My YouTube time is limited, as yours is. I just kind of breeze through the videos and catch the bullet points on my way through.
I know it's the way it is, but
yeah.
But okay, so yeah, as I said, by all means, please feel free to put the word out for people. And as soon as this is all done, as soon as I have this ingested and edited down and up on YouTube, I'll send you a link to it so that you know and you can view it. We'll go from there. Like I said, hopefully it's popular enough, and hopefully that I'm pretty sure people are going to like this. And as I said, hopefully anybody you know who's interested, we can help them out as well coming up soon.
Okay. Well, we'll do. We'll keep in touch via email.
Certainly will. Okay, Stan, I really appreciate it. Everybody out there in the YouTube world, that was Stan from BarZ Industrial. We were talking about the BarZ Summer Bash coming up. We're going to wrap up this phone call and put this up on a video on YouTube. Stan, I really want to thank you for calling, and I look forward to speaking to you again as soon as possible.
Okay. Good talking to you.
Thanks. Take care.
Bye now.
Okay. Well, there it is there. That was the first. I want to say thanks, Stan. I want to say thanks in a big way because Stan was the first caller to our network, literally the first caller to the TalkVideo Network. This is a new idea. We're using open source software. We're using Open Broadcaster Studio, OBS. We're using Asterisk voice over IP software. And we're using a soft phone client called Kiax, which is, again, open source editable software. And our setup is just a single Logitech web camera. This is a C930. They have great lenses. The benefit to using these Logitech cameras, these web cameras, there's a real advantage for you live streamers out there, is that you can hook up multiple of these cameras to your controller computer. That's a real asset. They're not very expensive. They have great lenses on them. They have good frame rates and resolution. And because it's a webcam, it skips all the extra stuff that a normal handheld camera would have. It's going to have, because it's connected to USB, the computer becomes the recording unit, and the computer becomes the viewing unit. You see, a normal handheld camera is going to have a viewfinder on the back, or it's going to have a view screen. It's going to have a whole bunch of electronics. It's going to have recording mechanisms aside. It's going to have a whole lot of electronics devoted to recording the video. All that goes away with these webcams. So you're just paying for the lens and the camera. It's very useful. You use them here, connect them to your computer, and because they're USB, you can have multiple cameras. And we're going to be doing some of that here in future streams. We're going to have multiple camera streams where we show multiple things going on. So the software is all free, and the computer I use is actually an IBM laptop. It is a W530. It's a laptop that back in its day was probably about a $1,500 to $2,000 laptop. It's got 8 cores. It's got an 8-core Core i7, right around 3 gigahertz, and it's got 8 of them. So this is a very powerful laptop, and it's also got a high-end video card. That's probably a requisite to do that. I will say that if you're going to be doing this, you can use these web cameras, these Logitech web cameras. They work great, but when it comes to the computer, you're offloading all that processing from the camera onto the computer. So you got to have a high-end computer. A good Macintosh laptop will work, or a good Intel-based laptop is also going to work. But you're really going to want something with a lot of cores and a lot of memory. And very fast. Fast CPU, and we use NVIDIA. We stick to NVIDIA GPUs and video cards because their drivers for Linux are so well developed. But we're getting off a little bit on the technical side. That's basically our setup, a single webcam. We can have multiple cameras, and we use a computer as a controller, ordinary lavalier mic, and we're using just an ordinary earbud headphone. And that's how we do the setup. It's not very expensive. The voice over IP service, we use a provider called Junction Networks to do what's called trunking. We use IAX protocol, and Junction Networks is what would be referred to as an IAX trunking provider, and they provide us with the tools we need to handle software telephone communication back and forth. So that's basically the technical details of it. And as I said, that was Stan from BarZ. It's really great to talk to him. I myself am an amateur machinist. I myself am a fan of the YouTube Machinist Community. And as part of this Talk Video project, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be calling other YouTubers. In fact, I think maybe starting on Monday, we may be calling the Townsends over there in Indiana and back in 1776. We're going to be doing a time warp call back to 1776 and talk to the Townsends. Or we're going to try. But we're going to start doing this project where we call out to different YouTubers, and some of these people list phone numbers. Some of my favorite YouTubers actually have phone numbers you can call for their business or their shop. And that's how I got a hold of Stan. I realized he's doing the BarZ Bash this summer, and I ended up calling his business and talking to him briefly and setting up the call. So we're going to do some more of that and talk to my favorite YouTubers. Stan, I want to thank you. First caller on the TalkVideo Network, first caller. I hope we're going to make some internet history today. I'm going to spend the rest of the day sending out an email campaign. I bought some email addresses, and I'm going to send out emails to people asking them to call in and to participate in help making internet history. This is the TalkVideo Network. This is a new idea. It's just like talk radio, just like talk radio. It's just like talk radio. It's talk video. And we're going to be making the service available to everybody on YouTube who wants to do live streams and take calls during their live stream. So that's the stream for this hour. We're going to be back in about 15 minutes, and I want to thank you for joining the TalkVideo Network. We'll see you next time.